Hi, and welcome back to Bible History, man. Today on Bible History, man, we're going to start talking about the Maccabean Revolution. Now, what you need to understand is when your New Testament dawns, freedom is a living memory for the children of Israel. They are sitting under their first foreign king in a very long time. And so they are not going to be like a conquered people. They are going to be bitter and angry about being conquered by the Romans and being ruled over by a puppet king, a foreign puppet king like Herod. And this is going to help set the background there because you see, they're going to taste freedom, and that freedom is going to come from a revolution, and that revolution is going to be sparked by the abominations of Antiochus IV, because he is going to send his men throughout the land, forcing the priests to sacrifice pigs and to eat of their flesh, and murdering any woman who sacrifices their child along with their child, hanging them around their neck. One day, the bully boys of Antiochus arrive in the village of Modin. They're going to have the sacrifice performed by the most respected priest in the place, a guy Mattathias. Now, Mattathias is respected because he has 5 grown sons. And so they're going to enter in. They're going to tell him that you need to sacrifice a pig so that we can eat it. Mattathias refuses. So a Hellenized priest comes forward, and he decides that he's going to offer the sacrifice. Now, the reason that Mattathias wasn't a good person to have there is he has 5 grown sons, and he and his 5 grown sons have swords, and they are going to pull them, and they're going to get to work on this priest before he can perform an abomination. And then they're going to get to work on the bully boys. And after the slaughter, they and the others like them who wish to stick to the ways of their fathers are going to flee into the desert. And they're not going to be alone. They're just going to be the ones that are going to make it away. Another group of rebels, because rebels are going to spring up because of this, because there are Jews all over Judea who do not want to Hellenize and do not want to apostatize from the ways of God and do not want to be unclean and do not want to sacrifice pigs. Now, some of them are going to get trapped in a cave, and the Greeks are going to know they're not allowed to fight on the Sabbath. And so they're just going to wait till the Sabbath, and then they're going to set fire to brush in front of their cave, and they're going to murder them. And they're not going to fight back. Mattathias is going to tell them, guys, we get to fight back. We're going to fight back, even on the Sabbath. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking that this was a rebellion primarily against the Seleucids. But in fact, the main enemy that these guys are fighting against are the Hellenized Jews. That's at least mostly the people they're going to attack. So imagine, if you will, a countryside where there are groups of Seleucid bully boys. They're roaming around the place. They're making people sacrifice pigs. They're checking for circumcision and killing people that do it. And then there are the rebels who are roaming the land. They're making sure that anybody who eats swine's flesh is put to death. And they check the little boys for circumcisions, and if they don't have them, they make sure to do it themselves. Because that's just not right if you don't circumcise your child on the 8th day, according to the law of Moses. Now, the rebellion is going to go on like this for a little over a year, and Mattathias is going to die. Not of battle, but just of old age. And he's going to gather his sons together, and he says, "Sons, when I die, you're going to have to follow Judas." And Judas the Hammer Maccabeus, over who this rebellion is going to be named, is the one who is going to get this rebellion really rolling. What's going to happen is the Seleucids are going to want to put this down, but Antiochus himself is not going to be able to attend to it because he has other fish to fry. Specifically, the Parthians have not been paying him tribute, and he desperately needs that tribute money. So he's going to head off with an army to go obtain that tribute money. Meanwhile, he's going to turn to Lysias, and he's going to say, "Lysias, you have 2 jobs. Job number 1, make sure my son is safe. Job number 2, make sure those Jews go down. Make sure that they really regret their rebellion." And so Lysias is going to send a large army, and that large army is going to run into Judas Maccabeus and his men. Now, we've already talked about the fact that these Macedonian phalanxes are just about unstoppable in battle. But they're going to run into their match in the hill country of Judea, where Judas Maccabeus and his men are going to skirmish them. They're going to go up, they're going to throw rocks, they're going to shoot slings, they're going to throw javelins, and then they're going to run away. They're not going to close into battle lines. And this is going to be super effective. They're going to defeat first that army, And then there's going to be an even larger army that's going to show up in order to do them down. Now, the second army is going to come down, and they're going to find out from some Hellenized Jews where these Maccabees are hiding. And so they're going to set up their camp, and they're going to head over. But Judas, he knows they're coming, so he's going to avoid them and go around them. And as they get to his camp and find it empty, they're going to see the fire coming from their own camp. And they're going to become demoralized, and they're going to flee. Well, I'd be lying to tell if I told you that this wasn't pure gold as far as the rebellion is concerned. Because there were a lot of people sitting around the place saying, man, I sure wish I didn't have to stop being a Jew. I would really like to fight back against all this kind of stuff, but what good would it do? But victory after victory, and it puts the starch in the young men of Judea, and they start joining the rebellion in droves. Next thing you know, Judas has got a sizable army on his hands. Now you might be interested to know that this rebellion, the Hellenization and the abandoning of the ways of their people, this is the egg from which the Pharisees are going to hatch. This group is going to turn into the Pharisees eventually. And so after these series of victories that Judas is going to have, Lysias is going to have to stop to recruit more troops. And in the relative peace that follows, Judas is going to march upon Jerusalem. And the high priest would dearly like to keep Judas out, being a Hellenizer and all. But he's not able to because, the walls have been torn down, and Judas has an army, and he doesn't. And so Judas is going to enter the city victoriously. And then he's going to cleanse the temple. He's going to go in, he's going to make the high priest do the rites, they're going to cleanse the temple and rededicate it to the Lord God. Now you have to ask yourself, these victories, is it because of the hilly terrain? Or did God fight for Judas? And the answer is, as usual, yes. It's both of them. The hilly terrain is going to be well used by Judas, and God is going to have his plan worked out in all things, as he always does. And this occasion where they go back and they cleanse the temple is the occasion for the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights. And so this is going to be an extremely large deal in Jewish history, and it's also going to be the beginning of Jewish independence, because now, instead of just being a bunch of rebels out in the countryside, Judas Maccabeus is now in military possession of Jerusalem. Now, is he ruling Jerusalem? Technically, the high priest is still ruling in Jerusalem, but the shots are currently getting called by Judas because he's got the army. So now he's got Jerusalem, and what is he going to do with it? Next time on Bible History Man. Well, that's another one of my episodes. Thank you so much for watching the whole way. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I love to answer questions. And if you're interested in it, I would love to talk about it. Also, if you have any other ideas about things that I could tell you about biblical history, I'm always open to suggestions, because it's what you want to hear that I would like to talk about. Now, if you like biblical history, like I like biblical history, or even a fraction as much as I like biblical history, I have a book out called A Helpful Handbook of Hebrew History. And it's available on WisePath Books or Amazon.com, and the links are in the comments below. Now, I would recommend that you would read a book instead of listening to videos all the time, because as an educator, I know it's much better for your brain, especially if you're not an adult yet. If you're still a youth, your brain is better if you read. So I would recommend that you read that book.